overall, hearing words like that from you, or sometimes a post just will touch my heart, and I just realize that, hey, it's all been worth it. It's
Yeah.
something I can look back and say, yeah, is it much of a legacy? I don't know, but it's a legacy because nothing goes away on the internet.
Nope.
So we'll
Nope.
see.
Just be happy it's that, and it's not pictures that you don't want out there.
Yeah, that's true. But
So what wisdom, what knowledge, what can you leave on this earth that is much longer lasting? And so sincerely, Jerry, we don't know each other. We've never met, but you're, to have the platform and to be able to discuss, just know you've helped me become a better technician. Many others, I'm sure, would share that same sentiment. I was fortunate enough to simply just reach out to the wonderful Jerry Schappert.
Perfect.
The creator of the Great Pest Cemetery on Facebook, and he also has Pest Cemetery Pro. Had a Pest Cemetery blog as well for a long time, and just somebody who, from a distance, I've always admired. To put it best in context, Jerry, I commented on your post on Friday when you were in that crawl space horizontal drilling block.
Yes.
I admire that. And it's a question we'll get to later, but I admire somebody who, you might be a year or two older than me, is still getting after it every day. And I've always admired that. You've had some published articles in the past in PMP, and just you've really given a lot back. I went and looked at your YouTube channel. You've got videos 15 years ago.
Yes.
So you're somebody that's valued that knowledge and sharing that knowledge and educating people. And I really appreciate that type of stuff, because that's what I'm trying to do too. And you've done this a lot longer than me, and I think you have a lot of things to share. And so I just want to thank you for your time. And if you wanted to just give a brief introduction here, I've got you pulled up, your website, where you're at for your business. And yeah.
Perfect. Well, first, thank you for having me. It's always an honor, and I consider it a privilege to at least share something, and maybe somebody will get something out of it 15 years from now, or today or tomorrow. But yeah, my name is Jerry Schappert, and that's my beautiful wife on our website. And she's also on the side of my trucks, mostly to her chagrin. She didn't really want to be.
Yeah.
She didn't want to be on a bug truck.
Yeah.
And I said, honey, we're rebranding. I don't know. Was that my old logo on there?
Let me look at the truck.
Yeah.
I think it is, isn't it?
Yep. That's old school. I had those bugs on the back since 1991.
Okay.
I had a little sketch. And so when I started my company in 93, I figured, hey, these bugs have been with us for a long time, and they've rode with me for years and years and years. But I think it was Hal Coleman or somebody said, don't use cartoons. And okay, maybe I'll look at. So now I have a new logo, and I should update the website because our trucks are stellar. We really went all out with that, and I'm very pleased with what we have. But yeah, that was an old picture. And then what most people love about my website is that I tell the story of how I started. And, I'm not a rocket ship. I've been at this since in my own business since 93, but in pest control since 1984.
Wow.
And, yeah.
I was born right before that.
Oh, okay. Well, you weren't exposed to chlordane. I was for a brief time.
I still smell it in crawl spaces up here.
I'm sure you do. So anyway, started, loved the industry, almost got out a few times, especially, here in Florida. I moved here, didn't know anybody, kind of was forced to start my own business because the crooks that were down here were just working for them was just terrible. And And back in those days, there was no internet, there was nothing. So, and I'm new here. No one knows me in Baltimore. I had a name, not much, but I had a name. Um, but anyway, so if I wanted to get anywhere, I needed to spend like $1,200 a month for a full page ad
Yellow
in the
Pages,
Yellow
right?
Pages.
Yep.
And I would have had to been called AAA Bug Doctor to
I
be.
remember that trend. Yeah, when I got in 01.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
So, that was, it was a slow slog for me,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of learning along the way. And just somewhere along the line, I decided, to start writing. And so I've done that. I did that probably, you say you've read my blog. I think there's 800 or so articles in there.
There's a lot. I tried to go back because you started at what, 2007?
Yes.
Yeah.
And actually, my son came up with the name, my youngest son,
Okay.
Pest Cemetery.
Okay.
My oldest son was getting into computers, and he said, Dad, be a blogger, you'll make $1 million. Well,
this is the future, right?
So I said, well, what do I call it? And Jared just blurted out,
Not that
a cemetery. And so that's been the name. And I tell you, for the longest time, everybody called it Pet Cemetery. But now it rolls off the tongue. Even my phone doesn't fight me anymore. It's like, do you want Pest Cemetery, Pest Cemetery Pro? What do you want?
Right.
But yeah, that I wrote tirelessly for 3 years, just 2-3 articles a night. And I converted a bunch of those articles into 3 different books. 2 are directly from the articles, and one's a little fictitious story, shall we say. It's got some truth in it, but it's got some wild tales in it. And that was a novel.
Okay.
And it's about that thick.
Is that the spider book?
No, it's called The Find.
Okay.
And it's a novel I had always had a dream in the back of my mind of writing a book about.
Okay.
If you want, I can tell you the history of it.
Sure.
Okay. Back in the day when I was starting my business, this one realtor took a liking to me. I bought her house, so she should. And she was the queen of all the repos in town. So if your house got repossessed, she got the listing. She got all the rights to who could clean it, who could do this. And so I got all the pest control inspections. And if I found rats, mice, you name it, she just approved it. And that kept my business afloat for a long time.
Yeah.
And one time she said to me, Jerry, when you go into these places, there's usually a dumpster sitting out front. And there was. They're throwing all of that stuff away because, Chris, these houses, it was like the sheriff came and they were gone. There was still coffee or pizza on but everything was gone. And she's like, whatever's in there, they're going to throw away. You can have.
Yeah.
I didn't feel too good with that, but every once in a while, I'll take a GI Joe for my kid or something.
Yeah.
But I always thought, what would it be like to find a sum of money, crawling under these houses or something? So from that, she's in the book as a realtor, and we've got a termite guy who's afraid of spiders, but he has to crawl under houses, and he finds a sum of money. But then the people are crooks, and they want the money back, and so the chase is on. And so that's The Find. And I typed like crazy on that book, and I thought for sure it was going to be about that thick. And when I hit print, it was so thin. It was like, oh my gosh. But it was a labor that really that's one of the last times I wrote, because that took so much energy out of me. And right around 2010, my oldest son, hey, you need to get into Facebook and promote your blog. And that's what Cemetery originally was for. I was going to promote my blog, get some YouTube bucks, and make my living that way.
And you wouldn't be here right now, right? You'd be retired on a yacht.
Yeah. But then it turned quickly. And I closed the group because there was a gal, I remember, she said, you know, I would share more, but you have non-industry pros in here, and I don't want to say what I have to say, you know, for everyone to see. So I closed the group, which I was very leery of. I only had 200 or 300 members, and I kicked a bunch of the non-industry people out, and lo and behold, it started growing. So a little bit at a time, every year. A couple of years ago, Brian Baird and Arthur Podcast, I'm sure you're well aware of, they gave me a beautiful little crystal when we had 10,000 members. And I'm waiting for my crystal because now we have 15,000.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, that's, I, you know, we said this a little off camera, or I did, you know, I kind of praised you a bit because, you know, me being younger, so I've been in the industry, this is my 20th year.
Cool.
And I worked for a family-owned business, my uncle, for a majority of that, and I've been on my own for 8. And well, this is our 9th year. But you know, I think the beauty of Pest Cemetery is the fact that you can communicate with people around the nation. You know, there's a discussion going on right now about, hey, what products are you guys using for spider control? You know, I think it's a guy in Wisconsin talking about that. And so there's a great discussion about, well, Demand at CS Works or Onslaught Works, you know, and people, I think, feel a little more free to share because I think you probably started when, you know, there were still maybe some secrets in the industry about like which products really worked.
Right.
But, you know, I think one of the biggest things people don't understand is like, there really aren't any secrets. There's no secret products. No. We all buy the same stuff from the same distributors. We just get better prices, how much you buy. Right. But I truly think Pest Cemetery allows people to open up, because I know it does for me. I'm able to freely share with somebody because I know I'm not competing. There's a Shipley Pest Control in Baltimore, and we get calls a couple times a month for it. And so we always have to call these people back and be like, hey, that's not us. You need to call. And because our Google rank apparently ranks so high.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we get the realtor calls, everything. And, but I think that's the very important thing that you've created, Jerry, is you've created this environment where PCOs, and this kind of leads into sort of my discussion about, you know, identifying with, because it seems like right now there's kind of two factions in the industry where there's the small mom and pops, which I don't, how big is your company? How many employees do you have?
We have 7 employees, but 4 of them are techs.
Okay.
And me.
I thought it was right around 10 or okay. So we're at 4.
Awesome.
And, you know, when I worked at the other business at my uncle's place, we had about 16, but a vast majority were seasonal because up here in Northern Indiana, it's frozen for 3 months.
Yep. I don't know how you guys do it, but you do.
Commercial, diversify.
There you go.
Yeah. You have to diversify. I was around in 08 and 09 when the housing market collapsed, and those guys that did, well, this is another thing we could talk about. I don't even have on the sheet, but you have probably seen the green thing come and go 2 or 3 cycles by now, because I've seen it twice.
Yeah.
And you know, this is my sentiment. I don't want to, you know, because the sentiment is when you come in with the B&G, you're the bug man, and you come in, you know, the old moniker used to be spray and pray. Or baseboard jockey. You still kind of see the baseboard jockey thing thrown around. But you know, I learned a long time ago, one of my now Univar rep, Tim Kafork. I'll give a shout out to Tim. He's a great guy. Been around for almost 40 years in the industry and has really helped me a lot. He told me a long time ago, we were doing continuing ed. He's like, I recommend this when you talk to customers. Don't say you're spraying chemical. Tell them you're applying a product. Yep. And that was something that stuck with me right away and really shaped how I thought about presenting to the customer. And that sort of goes back to this green thing where, you know, you get into the, you know, it's kind of the essential oils.
Right. Oh my goodness.
Do you get that a lot down there?
There's companies that thrive like further down in Miami and whatnot with them. God bless them. You know, I've used Web Out. I've used a few of those things, and
Hmm.
when you come back a week and a half later and it still smells like peppermint patty,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little bit much.
Yeah, that's you know, that 08, 09, I don't know. I mean, you're in Florida, so I don't know if it's super touristy where you're at or if it's more.
We have mostly snowbirds. We're north of
Okay.
Orlando, so
Right.
not a lot of tourists.
Hmm.
So I can see where maybe green would work for, you know, down in
Yeah.
Orlando,
Yeah.
because you got people from all over the world, and you know you don't want chemicals used. You want
Right.
green or what have you. Personally, I've just always respected the product,
Yeah.
used it accordingly, and we're as safe as we're going to be. And that's, you know,
Right.
that's what I tell customers and how I approach it, and have no issues.
Yeah, that we've been the same. And it's, you know, label is the law. You know, that's if there's one thing a new pest control technician gets drilled into their head, you know, label is the law. Hey,
Yeah,
well, what do we apply here? Where do we spread? Did you read the label? You know,
right.
here, take this home. I'm onboarding a new technician that worked for us for about 7 months part-time. And I couldn't ask for a better sort of, you know, if we could do this with every technician, work part-time for 4 hours for 7 months, ride with me, let me teach you everything. And then when you
Wow,
go full-time, you know, you'll be that much further ahead. And
that's
he's
awesome.
great. Um, but he was also a willing participant. You know, he wasn't some guy just, you know, it's a clock, I'm punching a clock.
Right.
Um,
Makes a big difference.
it does. And I've always kind of joked and said, you know, I don't expect employees to be a 10 out of 10. You know, your name, the bug doctor, is on the truck. My name, Shipley's on the truck. I don't expect them to be 10 out of, but if I can get them to a 7 or an 8,
Right.
we're winning,
Yep.
you know? And it's always fun. You might think this too, because I've seen some of, I don't want to say lamenting, but I've seen you share some of your hiring and training uh,
Ooh,
in the past. And it is. I think that's one side that again, this is sort of the PCO or small mom and pop versus the regionals, you know, or the three branch offices, and somebody sits overhead and they have their own HR department and everything.
right.
Um, you know, somebody else gets to deal with that sort of stress. Whereas you and I mean, I know me personally, I'm the last person to get paid in my business,
Oh yeah.
you know. That commitment you make to an employee, you know, I make sure that they get that paycheck every single week,
Right.
no questions asked. You know, I'll get paid when I get paid type thing.
Yep.
Um, Fortunately, you know, here in year 8 or so, we've been very fortunate to grow and get be diversified enough. And but uh, yeah, so you started um the Bug Doctor. So is it actually called the Bug Doctor, your
Yeah, the
business?
Bug Doctor Incorporated.
Okay.
I was actually in a franchise for about a year or so before,
Mm-hmm.
um, because you can read it in my blog. Those are all true stories of some of the bosses I had down here. Um, and I just looked at my wife and I said, I can't do this. I mean, I'm going to have to go, you know, be an accountant or something. Um, so we decided to start our own business, but we weren't sure where to go or anything. And there was a little newspaper advertisement: "Be your own boss in pest control," and it was a franchise type thing, don't you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so you know, we went to the meeting, bunch of guys there, and you use your own vehicle, buy your own chemicals, but they'll what would they provide? Basically, not a lot. Insurance and some other things. Well, long story short, I worked for them, and I became their branch manager or regional manager, and I was supposed to head up 143 guys, all from my area all the way up to like Tallahassee.
Uh-huh.
And all these guys were supposed to come to my home once a week for a meeting where I would train them. And then I would collect all their checks. I would collect all that, put it in a FedEx, send it down to Fort Myers to the office, and then they would get checks back. The law is down here, you know, the company has to pay you. The person can't write it out to Jerry Schappert
Okay.
They have to write it out to, and it was called All State Pest Control, I believe.
Okay. No longer around, I assume.
No, the feds came and made sure of that.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I got certified. I could see the writing on the wall. It wasn't a good place, and started my own company. So I actually kind of started in the red because a lot of those guys sold annual contracts to people, took the money, and then never showed up. So in my heart, I'm like, I got to take care of these people. So they signed up for a year. So even though I started my own company, part of the rule was I could take those customers with me. So I actually started with less than zero, a negative number, because I had all these contracts to fulfill. And out of all of them, I think maybe one continued. And I was like, oh my God, you talk about ungrateful, but oh well.
Right.
So it was a slow start for me. Starting, but well before the starting line.
Yeah.
Hey, I've been blessed, steady, slow but steady. And here in the last few years, acquisitions has been my main push. And I've acquired several small companies. Did one acquisition in January, which will put me over that mythical number that everybody talks about.
Okay.
Super blessed with that.
Awesome. And you guys are blessed with year round. You might get freezing temperatures in January, maybe. And so, do you run on quarterly programs primarily when it comes to just GPC, or what do you do?
I find that quarterly it almost stretches the product's viability just 1 month too long. So the bulk of my service is every other month.
Okay.
We'll do monthly for commercial or German roach until the problem is zero.
Yep.
And then they can do quarterly or every other month. The acquisition I just took on is 300 customers. They're all exterior only quarterlies. So today I did 10 of them, and we had a lot of rain in the morning, had a late start, and by 2 I'm done saying, gosh, is there anything else I can do?
Awesome. That's wonderful though. Yeah, that's one nice efficient routes then, I assume.
We're working on it, and we have it now very, very streamlined. But adding these customers, but my wife and Angie in the office are just on it, and they're going to make it right. And the guys that I have now, you talk about lamenting. I had a stretch of just the worst employees. I mean, I don't know. It was, or maybe I'm the worst trainer. I don't know. But
I don't think so. I've read quite a bit of you, Jerry. I don't think so.
Well, some of them didn't even show up to find out. So
that's if they don't show up to read the book, you can't say that they're bad at reading,
right?
Or good at reading. But
what I learned is I wasn't really paying my guys quite what they were worth. And a guy in the group, in the owners group, that's another good group, by the way. I like that group. Wonderful group. Yeah, he gave me some great advice, and said, "Pay more." Yep. And I'm like, "That's too simple. It's got to be more complicated than that." He's like, "No, you just pay them more, and you'll find those good guys." And doggone it if I didn't. So I'm paying more than I ever have, but I'm making more than I ever have, and the customers are happier than they've been in a long time.
Well, that's so I put a video out a couple weeks ago, and about raising prices and basically I attacked baby boomers. And so sorry if I offend you, Jerry. I'm going to guess you're on the tail end of that.
I have no idea. Maybe I'm a millennial in disguise. I don't know. I
think you're very young at spirit, young at heart. Good. I do. Because you've embraced technology. But I put a video out a year ago, sort of ahead of the election, saying, because I could see the writing on the wall, politics aside, it looks like to me that in order for a golden age or a resurgence of, because I grew up in the 90s, and this whole idea of, in the greatest land to ever exist, if we're going to make it great again, whether you agree with that moniker or not, to me, you have to reshore American labor. We cannot just be a consumption society.
Correct.
And so if we could return to a manufacturing society, and my whole thing was, okay, but Chris, all those tools and dies, they shipped them overseas. We're never going to be able to do that. We can't afford it. Well, maybe you don't need 20 pairs of jeans. Buy 4 American made ones. Right. And then the guy making the jeans gets paid 25 or 30 bucks an hour. Everybody, and then they spend the money in the community. The taxes stay here. Everybody wins.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful
So I went through the same thing with paying people. I hired a gentleman from a Southern franchise, a little north of you.
Okay.
And I talked to some other people, and I knew right away, wasn't going to be a 10 out of 10, but you kind of make do. My wife, who does the scheduling, I just said, hey, we'll do our best to set them up to succeed. We're going to set the plate for them to eat. And wasn't real good at driving.
Oh, no.
And and my whole thing was, at 90 days, I'll raise your pay $2 or $3 an hour based on where we're at. We'll sit down, have a real honest conversation.
Right.
Because I'm one of these guys where here's your, 10 to 15, 18 things a day. I'm not going to bother you unless you have issues. You should be trained properly, a responsible adult. Go out. If you have issues, call me. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I had started that gentleman at $20 an hour.
Okay.
So this is last spring. And then at 90 days, we were going to have a discussion to 22 or 23 an hour, and then scale up from there as they got licenses. And didn't make it to 90 days. And I kind of just looked around after 2023, same thing, thought maybe starting somebody at 18, 20 bucks, somebody'd be happy. But up here, I have to compete we're the RV manufacturing capital of the world.
Oh, wow.
So all the towables, it's about 45 minutes north of me, Elkhart and stuff, South Bend up by Notre Dame, all that. That's the capital. And then I have the biomedical capital of the world that make all the implants.
Okay.
Yeah. So skilled labor, which is mostly unionized in the biomedical field, those guys are making 30 to 40 bucks an hour to sit there and just run a CNC machine all day.
Sure.
And so I kind of was like, okay, if I need to go get these people, and then I was fortunate to be in discussion with the guy that's coming on full time next week. I was like, where do I need to be? And so I had a discussion with him, and I raised my pay 50%.
Wow.
Yep. And so I got a little closer, to be able, I didn't match his pay, but he was also at a point where he's like, I can't work in this building anymore, you know? And so he enjoys being out. Our customers are friendly because I fire the bad ones. I don't tolerate it.
There you go.
You want to call the office, yell at my wife, I'm going to call you until you go somewhere else.
Oh yeah.
Refund checks in the mail.
That's a non-starter for me too.
Yep. And so the same thing. I whoever gave you that advice, I think I've talked with some landscaping friends as well, landscaping, mowing guys, and some guys get it, some guys don't. Some guys still think they can pay guys 15 to 18 bucks an hour. You're not. I just don't think long term and as inflation started to eat us because we're doing taxes, we looked at the last quarter of last year, and full disclosure, we actually made less money last year than we did the year before.
I understand that
because it started Pac-Man-ing us and I said, okay. So part of that post was I raised that particular customer, I raised their price 20%. He took issue with that. By the way, update on that. He since called back, didn't directly apologize, but says, we'll happily pay your price now.
They always come back.
That's one of those things you learn, though, after being in it a few years. You don't chase the people that want to tell you what you're worth.
Correct.
You learn to let them fly.
Yeah.
But so, we're just under, so we do ours monthly. So we have a monthly, essentially GPC program. April and October are optional because it's typically in the 50s. It might get to 60 towards the end of April. And then May through September are our 5 main months. And then October's optional because the same. And so, but unfortunately yet fortunately, it freezes, so we don't have poisonous things like you do.
Oh, no.
We don't have snakes in crawl spaces. I mean, the amount of times I've interacted them, I can count on one hand.
Well, believe it or not, I've only seen 2 or 3 down here in Florida under a
Okay.
house. So,
Okay.
but
Good.
I could have crawled past 2,000 and just not seen them. Who knows?
You just don't look. Don't look.
Yeah, no.
Don't change the batteries on your light. Just keep moving.
That's one reason I take a hammer drill underneath with me.
Well, I mean, it's a real issue up here because we have raccoons, a lot of raccoons.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so, when you open that crawl space or you get to that crawl space door that's 8 inches open and it's a little chewed on.
Yeah.
You get in there and you make a lot of noise and shine around, look for that reflective eyeballs staring at you. And
yeah.
But I'm glad you brought that up as far as hiring, and because I think as owners, it's easy for us to say kids don't want to work. But at the same time, if we want to survive in today's day and age, I think you just have to meet the market or make the market in my case, because I'm way above the other guys around me, my other competitors. I know I am.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm above because a lot of people do commission and I don't do commission. So, somebody out there around here might be making killer bucks selling. We just pay hourly and then overtime and commission on sales if these guys are to open their mouths and sell.
Yeah, we do the same. It sounds like our businesses are very, very similar.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's very, hey, if you're at a customer's house and maybe they ask about mosquito, or we're adding mosquito this year, something new I've never done, but I've kind of looked at the landscape of things. When I worked for the other company, we covered 15 counties.
Oh, wow.
And you just, you're stepping over quarters to pick up dimes.
Yeah.
And it's sort of one of the other, I'll finally get to are you a small mom and pop, or are you the guy, because it seems like the business is fracturing to where the people are diving into the minutia where it's like, well, if you could order a 50-gallon drum of Onslaught, you can shave 25 cents off a gallon of B&G, and then what you need to do is you need to really route for efficiency because those guys can make 2 extra stops a day. And it's like, I don't disagree with some of it, but I grew my business I would rather do 12 to 15 good stops and have Mrs. Smith talk to everybody at church on Sunday.
And tell her.
Yep. Because you can't buy that advertisement.
No, we limit our guys to right around 13 to 15. Sometimes they do more.
Right.
It just kind of depends. And sometimes a lot less because a big commercial or something.
Yeah.
But we have a number that they're supposed to hit every day. And these guys I didn't really hit my number. I'm like, it's okay. It's all right. It'll even out. And at the end of the month, it always does, evens out, and they get their numbers there. And there's no penalty if they don't hit their number. It's really the office's fault for not putting more work in front of them.
Right.
But I want them to be blessed. I want them to be happy. And I want them to want to come to work and not wake up and say, oh, God, another day at the bug doctor. Now, they might be saying, oh, God, it's that customer again. I can't help that.
Right.
One with rabbit poop all over the house and you need a respirator. So those kind of things we all joke about. But the team I have now, they all have bought in. And like I said, I pinch myself because a lot of good things are happening for the bug doctor, and it's a blessing, that's for sure.
That's great to hear. Again, this kind of goes back to me knowing who you were because you had put yourself out there. I really felt just by your posts, because I joined in 2019.
Okay.
That's when I joined, which was about a year and a half after I went out on my own. And my learning curve. So my cousin, who is at FPC, well, used to be FPC. He taught me my initial stuff. And so my learning curve went like this. And then when I was on my own so basically what I ended up doing at my other company before I went out on my own was the first 3 to 5 years was just GPC, do everything. Right. You kill everything. And then I settled in with commercial, and how we had split the business up was you do commercial, other person would do like GPC, special appointments, that's roaches, fleas, stuff like that. And then the other person would do termite. And so then I felt like I just stagnated for about 4 years because all I did was commercial, and it just kind of drove me nuts. And then when I left and went out on my own, you know, I was able to kind of spread my wings and fly, or I'm going to hit the pavement.
Right.
And joining Pest Cemetery, the amount of stuff I learned from some of those early Paul Bello, I mean, Daniel Dye.
Oh my God.
I always love the ID stuff. I would always wait. Somebody would post a random bug from Oklahoma in the foothills, and I would always wait for Daniel Dye, and he would give us like little hints.
Yeah.
And every time he knew what it was.
Yep.
And
it's phenomenal. And he only lives an hour away, so I get the pleasure to see him 2 or 3 times a year.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's another person that, you know, I think that's the beauty of you creating the platform for these people to put themselves out there, whether it was the Pest Cemetery blog or Facebook. You know, for somebody like me to observe all that and soak up that knowledge, if you want to, it's there.
Yes.
And even if people, you know, everybody only wants to look at whatever maybe is posted that day or the past couple of days, but if you go on there and search, I mean, the amount of wealth of knowledge that's on there about everything.
Yep. The search bar is incredible. I can look up things and say, "Oh, I know almost all that's posted in there," but it's so overwhelming now. I know I miss a lot. But yeah, I say, "Oh, I forgot about that little tip," and boom, I'm off and running again, solving a problem because of the group.
Yeah, so we added flow zones to our treatment, to our tool belt last year. And I waited and waited and waited because Gen 1 kept breaking. And thanks to Pest Cemetery, I held off because people are like, this piece keeps breaking, this keeps doing it. And I'm like, nope, not ready yet. Then version 2 came out and people are like, well, these are breaking a little less. And then version 3 came out and everybody's like, these are amazing. And I was like, okay, time to use them. And so I appreciate a bunch of those people really putting a lot of that information out there. Because
they'll do good informative videos on it, you know, they'll show how it broke and believe it or not, but a lot of the companies like FlowZone and some others, they're watching the group too. They're in there and they're like feedback and I get so much free stuff to try this and try that.
Yeah.
And some of it is great, some of it not so much, but they're in there and they're watching and they're listening to the group. So it's got some amazing reach.
Yeah. And I really, you know, I know this sounds like a Praise Jerry thing, but I just, you know, that to me, especially as like a solo operator, because my brother worked for me for the first 5 years and then he moved on. He just kind of young 20s, he kind of hit a wall with me and it was just bad timing for us too. Cause I had in 2022, I tore both meniscus in my knee.
Ooh.
One in April and one in September.
Ouch.
And I lost 3.5 working months and that was rough. And so, you know, ultimately I think that was part of why my brother left too. And part of me maturing and becoming just a better owner, better human being as I get older and trying to sympathize or empathize with people is, of course, that was rough on him, you know? And so him and I still communicate and we're great, but I hit, you know, my cousin taught me all this and then I did the commercial work forever. I started my own and I started to go up again because of Pest Cemetery, because I stagnated there for so long because you just kind of, you know, that's all you know.
Right.
And one of the things I did enjoy and I'm looking forward to now is adding more technicians, because I told my wife, you know, we finally built our wide foundation, our wide base of our pyramid. So now we get to build the scheme up. But I enjoyed when I had other technicians where I worked that had 5, 8, 10 years experience, and you go to that German roach job like the 4th time and you're like, what am I missing? Can you go? Maybe you know, I've got a blind spot. Maybe I'm missing something. And they go and they're like, well, I found him over here. Maybe, you know, I rotated product over here, or I don't know, man. You just, so that was, again, it just all goes back to Pest Cemetery, because it allowed me to bounce ideas off or just get reinforcement from other people. Hey, if you rotate these products, or hey, we've had success with these products. And I've picked up a lot of products that maybe weren't being used necessarily in my area, but it had been adopted in the Southwest, down south by you. And you guys were, I remember when Alpine first came around. I don't use Alpine, but I remember it basically ripped through the southern part of the states. Everybody loved it.
Oh yeah.
And do you use it, or?
Yes, we use it, especially on ghost ants and different kinds of trailing ants.
Yep.
But it's WSG, so if you use it outside, first little bit of rain or sprinkles, it's gone.
Yep.
So we try to spot treat inside along trails. We just have these little squirt bottles and hit the trails. I invented a thing called bait and switch, which really is not an invention. And speaking of Daniel Dye, he was watching my video on it on YouTube, I think it is. And Daniel was the some sort of director in FPC, the technical director, I guess. He looked at plugs all day. And he saw that video, and he tested it, and it worked, and they adopted it for Florida Pest Control, the whole company. And I was like, oh, wow.
Look at you making FPC all that money.
I'm telling you. It's funny now, though, the new company that has bought them out has on their training site, and I've seen the screenshots. People have sent it and said, please don't tell anybody.
Right.
But one of the questions is, where do you get your information? And it's from blah, 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 or Pest Cemetery, Facebook. And of course, if you put Pest Cemetery Facebook, wrong answer. So don't put that. But that's actually in one of their tests. I was amazed. I don't know if it still is, but that was a couple of years ago. So I guess I put a dent in that little company.
That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I've heard some things, just because, I've heard some things as well, as I'm sure you have. And, it's interesting because, I think there's plenty of newer technicians in the Pest Cemetery group, certainly some that are more vocal than others about implementing new things that they're doing and not afraid to embrace technology for the good or the bad.
Right.
And that's one of the things I've always told people. And this is one of the things in my area. So in my area, I have a third generation company. It was started in the 60s. I have a local guy to me that does critter and then GPC. And he literally lives like 8 minutes from me. Because our town that we operate in, we have about 25,000 people. That's where we're at. But the area we service is about 50 to 55 minutes. And we're in what's called like the lakes area. So we have 100 lakes in our county.
Wow.
And so it's a heavy vacation area from, think, Chicago, Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, Ohio, Detroit. They have a bunch of lake houses here. And so we're fortunate to live almost touristy. But, I have these competitors, and then the company I worked for previously is about 50 minutes north. And I've chosen to go the route of not feast or famine, but there's so much for everybody to eat. There's a seat for everybody at the table.
Amen.
And are you the same way too? Are you?
Absolutely. I have people call me all the time locally for advice. I go out to their jobs.
Yep.
I'll even volunteer to put on one of their shirts. I don't, and I've helped drill some of their jobs or put a different set of eyes on it. And, sometimes I help. Sometimes it's like, no, man, you're doing everything you can. This time the bugs win, that kind of thing. So I've been blessed to make a lot of friends around here. And when I started way back, when you got to a red light and there was another bug man, you didn't wave back then. Now we're waving, taking pictures and posting them. Hey, look who I saw. So we have, every once in a while, I'll do a beach party here at my house.
Okay.
And,
are the pigs invited?
The what?
Are the pigs invited?
No.
No. Okay.
No. Because someone will try to make a
ride them or something.
Yeah, so that somebody will make a bacon joke and Renee will go ballistic.
Yeah.
But we have what we call Pestalooza or Pest Cemetery Beach Party. And all these friendly competitors come from FPC, from you name it, Daniel Dye, Paul Bello. They've all been here, and we'll take the boat out. And, we just have a great old time and have a fun day. And, we do things like that. We've done a cruise. That was a part of Paul Bello's thing. We did a big thing in Louisiana, a conference, Pest Cemetery. And then Bayer had us out to their headquarters, a bunch of Pest Cemetery members in North Carolina, all expenses paid.
Wow.
And I don't know if it was Bayer or my distributor, but I didn't pay anything.
Yeah.
And we got to see their facility, which was, like a $10 billion building with all this cool stuff.
Wow.
All because of this little tiny group that started a couple of years ago.
I can't say it enough. A big part of the reason why I wanted you on here was just to sort of let you know, hey, you've meant a lot to people that you've never met. We've never met.
No, we haven't.
And for somebody like myself that's been in it 20 years, it really has been instrumental in my growth. I think, if you don't adapt, you die. Right. And especially in today's environment where it seems like these newer products, and that was one of the things I did want to talk about, some of the changes you've seen over the years, maybe the biggest improvements in products or the worst, and how a lot of these products now, because when I started, I'll give you an example. When we would do, say, like a German roach clean out or a flea job.
Okay.
Each one of those, like a German roach clean out, we would baseboard spray, I think at the time with Demon Max, because it wasn't restricted use yet.
Right.
They changed the label later. I think that's what we used back then. And then we crack and creviced with orthene.
Wow.
Orthene. When I first started, our GPC product was Dursban TC.
Oh,
that's when I started.
Wow. That was your GPC?
That was the GPC product we used.
Oh, what? Are you sure it wasn't Dursban EC?
It probably was, because it doesn't make sense for it to be a termiticide.
Yeah.
It probably was.
Yeah.
I still remember the mix rate. It was 32 ounces per 50 gallons.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we used to carry two 2-gallon jugs in our gray B&G cases. Yeah. And then you had the mixing cup. And wow. I remember that's when I started in 01. But the German roach cleanouts were, baseboard spray. I think we were using Demon Max. And then orthene for the flush out. Then we would use CB80 for the fogger at the end.
Wow.
And then we would use which at the time, I mean, it was basically just your generic FC, your roach FC bait.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some other ones, but I think we just used the generic. I think it was roach. Was it FC? Is that what it was called?
I think there was that, and there was Siege, but Siege might have been before your time.
Yeah, we never used Siege. Yeah. I never. The big giant tube that looked like. Yeah, we never used that one. So we used 4 products for a roach clean out, and it was kind of similar with like flea treatments. We would use 2 products, like a Nygaard for the IGR. Then we'd use like a knockdown, and I can't remember what the knockdown was. But then we would also CB80.
Oh man.
And so that was the protocol. But now a lot of these modern products, you've got 2 and 3 and 1 now.
Yes.
And so what are some of the changes you've seen, good or bad, over the years?
The baits have become so much more efficient baiting. Because like when I was introduced to baiting, it was Siege, and the gun was about like this.
Yeah.
And when it worked, it was knocking roaches out. But then out of nowhere and almost across the industry wide, it just stopped working. It was like the roaches said, "Okay, we're not dealing with you anymore," or they got immune. I don't know, but it just stopped.
So this is this mid to late 90s, you think? Or was it later than that? Okay.
No, that might have even been late 80s. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
No, I was here. I was here in Florida.
Okay.
So no, that had to be the 90s. Um, yeah, because we didn't have any baits in Baltimore. It was you talk about lay and spray.
Yep.
I can baseboard jockey with the
With
best
the
of
best of them.
them. But yeah, so it had to be here, 94 or something like that, 95. And then they kept coming around with different, playing around with different baits. And I want to say, I don't know which one was first, but they've come out with some great ones, Vendetta Plus,
We use nitro a lot.
Nitro,
Yeah.
and Trio.
Advion Trio.
Avion
Yep.
Trio. I think maybe Avion might have been one of the first earlier baits, but don't quote me on that.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And then some of the ant baits, there was Drax, terrible.
Okay.
It came in a dual tube, so you were feeding them protein while you're feeding them sweets. Really need either damn thing. It was terrible. So what we used to cut up straws. There was a post in the group the other day. We did this way back in the day, cut up straws, and we would put Caro syrup mixed with boric acid in there, and that would get rid of our pharaoh ant problems in Baltimore.
Okay.
Big bucks.
You had them that far north? They're that far north? Pharaohs?
Yeah, we had them in Baltimore big time. So
really? Okay.
Yeah. I didn't do that all the time because it was very time consuming. I would just spray and get out of it.
Right.
I was only making $2.20 a stop, so I couldn't do a whole lot.
About $30 a day. Is that what you made?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Wow.
At the end of the day, I would get 3 initials, so I would get 15%. They were $75 initials, so a little more than that.
Okay.
It was a draw system, and I had to do so much.
Yeah.
To get my draw, and then after that, I made. But I got into sales soon after, which was a mistake. But yeah, then the termite baiting has come a long way. Termidor changed the industry. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And I kind of get mad with people who, either I don't care if they see this or not, they can sue me. DIY.com and whatnot. Yep. God bless you. Go make your money. But now I saw an ad in a magazine. I won't say who. And there they are. DIY. We want your business. Yep. I'm like, what have you done for the industry? I remember years ago, I was at a hockey game, and I see in the ice the logo for Termidor. Now, tell me, have you ever seen DIY in the hockey ice or on a building or
no?
Termidor, BASF is just wonderful with things like that. Other companies. So these places that don't help the industry, I would rather pay more and go through my dealer, my representative, and get Termidor. I don't care if Taurus is cheaper. I'm going with Termidor. That's just me. Maybe I'm just an old fool.
Nope, I'm right there with you.
Okay. So anyway, Termidor definitely changed the industry because I was almost ready to get out of termite control because we had a product called Pyfron down here.
Don't know that one.
It didn't last long. It was billed as all that in a bag of chips, but come to find out, there's little microbes in the soil of Florida that would eat the Pyfron and get nice and fat. So there was no Pyfron left a month later. And so that went downhill quick. And then Termidor came out, got in with that. And, some of the baiting systems I've seen and used, it was terrible. You'd have to take this cut up paper, like almost like.
I remember it. The strands like you threw through a shredder.
Yep. And stuff it in there, and you had to check it, and you had to scan.
Yep.
So now you've got ABS, always baited or whatever that's
the ATBs. For. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's come a long way. sadly, Termidor, I guess, has lost its, mojo as far as its patent,
Yeah.
so people can infringe on it. But for me, it'll always be Termidor. I don't care. But the baiting is very thrilling. I actually, the Formosan termites are very heavy down here.
Yeah.
They're getting heavier. So I sell jobs where I'll do the Termidor along with the bait.
Okay.
I don't do a single anymore. And
Yeah.
I'll never do bait alone. I'll do Termidor alone, but most often it's Termidor with the bait. And the people appreciate it, and they will pay the extra money for it. So, but other than that, the chemicals, the products, excuse me, have come a long way as well. The residual, some of these is a lot longer than it ever used to be. You use a lot less. I mean, I just bought some temperate, and when I got the bill, I got 30 bottles. I was like, wow, did I just buy a small car? What?
Yeah.
Anyway, but you use so very little in your backpack, and you get these great results. So, but I still told the guys they better squeeze every ounce of that.
8 milliliters means 8 milliliters, not 9. Yeah, we use FX a lot. We primarily use it though for bed bugs. We've had great success with bed bugs with it.
Yeah, I've heard that it works wonderful.
I
Apprehend.
See, I haven't gotten into the biologics just because of the temperature we're at up here, because it has to stay in that perfect window. And I've if you're in southern Indiana, I think you could get away with it just because that temperature doesn't swing as much. But today it was 66. 4 days ago it was like 28, and so a high, and we had snow on the ground. And so in the summertime, for me to walk around with a cooler bag, because you have to keep it at what, like 75, or you have to keep it in a certain window, right?
Yeah, as long as it's not in the cab of your truck.
Okay.
Maybe if it's in a box, it's usually okay. I mean,
okay. So you're using it then?
Use it all the time.
And it's wonderful.
It works very well. I use other products too, Crossfire. I am going to try the tempered, though. I heard wonderful things about on bedbug. I'll use it because you can't spray, tempered in some places without making a mess or whatever.
Right.
I'll do the bed frames and wherever else they may travel. Works pretty damn good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm open to it. Our protocol. So I've done over the years, I've probably done a couple thousand bed bug jobs. But I wanted to give a shout out to Tim Williams in the Pest Cemetery group. He's one I would love to have a conversation with him, but he's always fumigating houses or heat treating houses for bed bugs.
I did a podcast with him, and he is quite interesting.
Okay. Where's he? Is he in South Carolina, North Carolina?
No, either Alabama or I think Alabama.
Okay, so Southeast Coast somewhere over there. Okay. He's another one in the group. Awesome. I always appreciate whenever he posts or mentions something, because I know that dude is literally taking time out of his day to make a post, because he works. I've seen him post on Sundays. Hey, check out this job we're doing right now. It's like Sunday at 3 p.m. And I'm just hats off to you, man.
And he's always got a sense of humor too.
Yeah, I think if you were to put together, what makes a great PCO, good to great, I think you have to sort of be humble enough to laugh at your failures and your achievements.
Amen.
Just because, that I find myself saying this a lot, because we have a bunch of farmhouses up where we're at. I'm in north central Indiana, so I'm about an hour south of the Michigan border, and I'm about an hour 45 from Chicago, where I'm at. And so we have a lot of farmhouses. So a lot of these houses were built legitimately in the 1880s to the 1920s.
Wow.
And so I call it Billy Bobbing, because a lot of these houses have been Billy Bobbed 3 or 4 times. And so, and I always find myself saying, hey, the house has been in the ground 100 years. Mother Nature wins eventually. Eventually it wins. And so, this is a solvable problem. It might cost X, but this is a solvable problem. But yeah, the bed bug thing, I'm happy with our protocol. One of the first things I did when I went out on my own was buy a vacuum, an Atrix backpack vacuum.
Yep.
I use it on bad German roach problems as well. Because my whole theory is if I can eliminate 90 to 95% of what's visible to me, then it doesn't matter what I could spray water. Doesn't matter. I'm already eliminating this, and then you just on the back end then. But yeah, I haven't used Apprehend yet just because of the temperature thing, and our protocol seems to work for bed bugs. So we've got the prep list, clean, laundry, everything out of drawers, all that. I think all of us industry wide have kind of the same prep list now. And then we go in our first treatment is we vacuum everything, flip everything, like we're two men in a truck. We're flipping everything, vacuuming, and then we treat according to label. Right. And then we'll use
Apprehend, you have a lot less prep.
I've heard that. And and then because what do they say? Is it like 45 or 60 days to achieve total control? What do they cite?
It's like a 2-week cycle for it to really start working.
Okay.
I've not heard that about 40 to 60 days.
Okay.
We usually tell them we'll do a follow-up in 14 days. And they may see 1 or 2 and we'll do a little spritz or whatever. And then we just play it by ear. And some I have to go back in 30 days because they forgot that they had a load of laundry in a corner or something. I had one lady recently, she put everything in the dryer, but she was so cheap, she didn't want to run it on high heat. So it was just tumbling. And so her daughter came down, found that out, and ended up paying us full price again for a new treatment because we did the original treatment months ago. And
well, it obviously saved her money on her electric or gas bill.
Yeah, jeez. So anyway, I used Apprehend there, and I think that's what really helped. But when they were just doing that and bringing the clothes back in, it is what it is. So, but yeah, then once they did the laundry, problem was solved.
Yeah, that's about. So I've kept track. We use Gorilla Desk now. We've been digital for 3 years. Love it. I used Pest routes early on, like 2015, 14, 15, and used some of the other ones, but we've been very happy with Gorilla Desk. And so I can look at our bed bug treatments and then retreatment rates. And we do the vacuuming, treating, crack and crevice, everything. Our protocol for bed bugs, we average it's just under 2.5 treatments. So our protocol is that initial follow-up around 14 days or as close to 14 days as possible, which is according basically to the label of tempered as far as retreatment rates. Plus I found that if an adult bed bug feeds every 7 to 10 days, why would I do a 7-day follow-up? Because now you might be treating before, if you missed one in a void, that one might not even have come out, walked across the product or interact with the product. And so I found, because I played with my retreatment days for a long time, and 14 days seems to be about the happy medium, I think.
Yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah. And then we'll provide up to a 3rd and 4th treatment for 90 days if needed. But the amount that we ever do a 3rd or 4th treatment, we're right under 2.5 treatments really on our bed bugs. And so, yeah. But it's protocol, it's diligence. You said there's a lot more application. There's a lot more. I mean, we have to really, you can miss, I'm sure you've seen it. You miss a 6-inch section on the back of a headboard, nightstand, box spring. I mean, that's all it takes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's, so I remember, to go back to Termidor in the beginning of bed bugs, I remember doing continuing ed because Purdue is about an hour 15 from me.
Oh, that's too cool.
Yeah. And so we've got the school down there. But I remember going to continuing ed probably like 06, 07, maybe down there for one of the nationals. And because Termidor came out in 08, I think. It was. It was right around 08 to 2010, somewhere in there, I thought. Because I remember, I forget who did the discussion, but it was about, I remember the slide, is this the end of termites? And it was the whole idea that Termidor works so well because of the transference of the fipronil that is this going to ultimately end these termites forever and ever and ever? Well, here we are 15, 20 years later.
They're still here.
Yeah. And we primarily use HE. I love HE because we have a lot of basements up here.
Yeah.
And so being able to use like space that drilling out and use a little less product is amazing, because you probably don't have basements much down there, do you?
There's a couple, but shoot, most of our slabs are smack on the ground. And if you do any trenching, real trenching at all, you're already underneath that footer.
You're under the footer, and now that's against label. You can't do that.
Yeah. So that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of ours, I remember back in the day, I mean, a lot of depth of footers up here, I mean, you would be 8, 10, 12 feet.
It's crazy.
And so,
that's hard work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it would take you, I remember, because we used to have to vertical drill and horizontal drill before HE. And now when they came out with EPLI, you know, you can substitute a little. And we have a lot of finished houses up here. And foam has been Termidor foam has been a tremendous tool for us. I've really embraced the foam, especially in these bathroom remodels. They find water damage, you know, and you're like, oh, they tear the wall open, and oh my goodness. You can show up, charge them for the foam treatment, but you get immediate fipronil, you know, or the active right on that wood. Right. And we always tell them to tear out the damaged stuff first, fix it how you're going to fix it. Before you slap drywall up there, call me. Right. And then we'll get it around the sill plate, all up the, you know, the supports and everything. And then they can close it up. And I think that satisfies the customers. Oh my goodness, we're actively spraying something, doing something, rather than, well, when the ground thaws, Mrs. Smith, in 3 months, then I'll come back. Well, what if they eat my house in the whole? They're not going to, but so we've embraced foam. Termidor foam has been tremendous.
In a can, or do you have a foam machine?
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't have an Actisol or anything. I use just the cans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or a Versafoamer. I've never. I don't have the application to like fumigation. I don't know if you do any. Yeah, I have no. Outside of fuming, we have stink bugs up here. We have the brown marmorated stink bug.
Sure.
Invasive. And a long time ago when I worked for the other company, we were approached by some RV companies because they were shipping them to Australia. Well, in order to get shipped out of the country, they had to prove that the invasive species was not in there. And so we looked at doing it, and I looked at the licensure and everything. And ultimately I looked at, you know, at the team members and my boss, and I just said, there's no amount of money they can pay me to fume those, because if I'm wrong, I die. I don't, you know, now I know that's a little dramatic, but that was kind of how I approached the fumigation. Seems like once a year or twice a year, though, we get those such and such fumigated a unit. There was somebody adjacent. It killed the people next door. And
that's terrible. We've got a great guy down here that does tons of fuming. The reason I don't get into it is it's a lot of labor, and it's almost like wildlife. You don't just have your regular route. You're going from one end of the state to the other. And too much traveling for this cat.
I agree. Yeah, we've methyl bromide is what it is, correct? Yeah.
Vicane.
Vicane. Yep, that's the one I was trying to think. That's you know, and to get back to the annual termite bait stations, Trelona is the one that we use. The green lids, when I started my business, I was way too small for green lid to talk to me. And all my competitors used them because they were big enough. But it sure seems like the industry has sort of shifted dramatically on that. That's been interesting to watch in real time, because why would these much, much larger companies, certainly with, you know, the entomologists and such on staff, why would they be shifting away from those? That's where it kind of gives me pause and go, are those really the best product to be thrown in the ground then?
Well, that I got shunned as well, and I took it personal. And this was way back in the day.
Yep.
And I don't care if I qualify now, I wouldn't go for them. But I didn't realize that some companies were moving away and moving to another product. We love Trelona. I use it. I used to use the matrix guy, and and I got out of baiting for a while because it was just too much. But Traylona is just, I just bought a little auger and boom, it's in the ground.
Well, your soil's sand too. You don't have hard soil.
Yeah, but try to dig a thing and then the sand caves back.
Oh, it just keeps caving in.
So
yeah, we've that, to get back to that sort of friendly competitors or friends with your competitors. Sure. My first 2 or 3 years, I referred anything baiting to that third generation business that's close to me, because I was just honest with customers. They've got the manpower, they've got the product, call them. Right. Right. I could maybe satisfy this other thing, but call them for that. Right. And so, because so I started 2018, 17. Traylona really wasn't a thing. I mean, it was starting to come on board, but the ATBs didn't come around until I think about 4 years ago, maybe 5.
Yeah, I don't think it's been long.
And so, that's a wonderful product that they've offered that's really, really helped the small time, the mom and pops, in my opinion.
Yeah. Because
I've heard and continue to have been told that Greenlid won't even talk to you unless you're spending like $100,000 a year.
Well, and that's what I've heard too. Or, like I said, I've never talked to them since. It hurt my feelings.
I'm with you, Jerry. They could come to me and be like, we'll and nope. I sorry. But I like the flexibility of the ATBs, because up here, what I do is we'll install, and then I'll traditionally do a follow-up 3 to 6 months later of that first year, replace any of the pucks that maybe had activity, mark it down. Yeah. And then from then on, it becomes annual.
That's smart.
Just because, I've got a 3-month, this kind of gets into the why we're monthly as opposed to quarterly or bi-monthly, just because there's 3 months out of the year where it's frozen.
Yeah, definitely. Well, in Baltimore, I ran the inner city route, so the rats and the roaches could care less.
Yep.
And as long as my B&G thawed out by the time I got to the first stop, I was good. And I would still do 22, 23 stops a day.
Would you sit it in the passenger floorboard with the defrost?
I did.
Yep. I've had to do that a time or two up here. I forget to take it out and put it in the cabinet and where
well, a lot of times I'd take it up to the apartment where Renee and I lived.
Yeah.
And then in the morning, I'm just groggy, forget about it, get all the way into Baltimore. I'm like, oh no. I have to drive back, get it, and then do double time on my route. Because I think I only had one B&G with that company, and didn't have a ladder, didn't have much of anything, respirator, nothing. And we did tracking powder and like it was candy.
Was that back in Rosal days? The blue powder?
Rosal, yeah. We made our own. We made our own bait.
Okay.
We took bird seed, put it in a cement mixer, took the Rosal and dumped it in whatever ratio, and just mixed it up. And I tell you what, the mice would eat that, and you go. And we use the little white boxes. I'm not sure if you used them. They're called trap rights or something right.
Sounds familiar.
Cardboard boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And then got the holes, you put your glue board in it.
Yeah.
We would put bait in it. And that's and it was the seed bait. And it would be scattered all over the floor. And then you go there, and the dog's got a bunch of, little bird seed on it. So,
wow.
It was wild, wild west.
That goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, where, there are no real secrets in our industry anymore. You can't, because it's, for those that don't know, it is explicitly against label. A lot of these products say, do not mix. You can only apply in this, an enclosed container or locked container, keep out of reach of pets and kids, and all this stuff. I've had to call BASF once. You remember the Fast Track place packs, the green, and then they went to the purple. Yes. And then they made them illegal because the throw packs, everyone just threw in crawl spaces and attics. Yep. And I had a customer's dog eat one of those. She thought. And so I had to call, because I think that was bromethylene was that active.
Okay.
Or was that Brotificome? No, Brotificome I think is in Talon now.
I think your bromoline is correct.
Okay. Yeah. And so, because I know like the modern day ones, vitamin K, is the counteractive for mammals if they consume, which I try and educate people. You know, we use locking. That was another minor thing I made, is we use locking bait stations on everything. We used to use the plastic snap lids and all that stuff. And the litigation and the dead dog and getting sued into oblivion is not worth it. Just buy the $4.50 lockable ones, or $3. Don't buy the 75-cent plastic ones.
Yeah.
Buy the locking ones.
Definitely. So yeah, we do the key ones, Evo Express, or I like top loaders. No one uses top
Do you?
loaders.
Yeah.
I love them because you can put Liquitox in them.
Okay.
With a little bottle.
Mm-hmm.
I use those at some of our feed places we do, and a big alpaca farm that I do.
Okay.
And it knocks the snot out of them.
Do they pay you in socks?
Do they pay me in what?
In socks?
No, I wish.
No. Yeah.
Oh, this lady pays me handsomely. She owns 4 mansions and she only lives in one. So she's a little doo-doo.
So we're in the wrong industry then. We need to be raising alpacas.
I'm telling you. So she's a sweet lady, but she's out there. She, George Bush is dead, and it's a body clone.
Oh, one of those.
Yes. So
that's the QAnon stuff. That's way out. Yeah.
Well, when I go there, I have to yes, ma'am. No one else can go with me.
You take your deep breath. Yep.
I have to do it.
Yep.
But some days she writes me out a $10,000 check without even. She's like, okay. And did you hear that? Trump did this, or and then she goes off.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
She's got a freaking gymnasium, about 25,000 square feet.
Okay.
And it's got a conveyor type belt rock wall that you climb.
Yeah.
And I want that so bad in my shop. So I'm hoping she leaves that to me in her will, not my will, her will.
Well, that's I'm not trying to end the conversation. Right. I'm happy to end this whenever, Jerry. We've been going for about 1:15. So you just let me know.
A couple more minutes. I'm great.
Yeah, I think we could do probably a lot more of these. We could do one on what's the coolest thing or coolest customers' houses you've seen or done. Worst accounts, best accounts type thing.
Those are always fun.
Because that's the thing. I always considered myself, when you go into somebody's home, you're entering their most personal space. Yes. And I know for me, one of the things I enjoy and why I love pest control is you're allowed to have those conversations, whether they be sane or insane.
Right.
You get to have them.
Yeah.
And, that's one of the things I've kind of enjoyed over the years is I feel like I'm kind of a little more in tune, and maybe you could probably relate to, you're probably very in tune with sort of the zeitgeist or just kind of how everybody is, because you interact with so many people.
I think you're exactly right. And I like to think of myself as, I don't know if chameleon's the right word, but I can fit in. I can talk mechanics. I couldn't tell you what a carburetor does. Yeah. But I'll talk about it. Yeah. I'll talk about the Green Bay Packers. I'll talk about, whatever. Yeah. I try to limit it on politics and religion.
Yep.
But there's just times that it comes up. And then there's times, just the other day, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but a little old lady lost her husband, and we prayed together.
Yeah, that's amazing.
You just don't see, you don't get that opportunity a lot of times.
Right.
But it was very sweet, and she, I think she appreciated it.
Well, that's so. I assume you're licensed. Do you do WDOs and WDIs?
They're both one and the same here.
They're one and the same for you guys. Okay. Up here we don't have WDOs.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just wood destroying insects, and so like the home inspectors don't even do WDOs because we don't have organisms and stuff like you guys do.
Oh yeah, we've got organisms.
Organisms. But that's I've seen this too because I had somebody ask me a little over a year ago how many houses you think you've been in over your career, and I was like, I started doing if I doing the math, and around year 19, I'd figured I was in over 20,000 somewhere in there.
Okay.
you know, because well, if you just add it up, 12, 15 stops a day, you're talking with these people, you do it long enough, year round, you're in these commercial. I mean, so I would imagine you're double me, roughly. And, you know, you find yourself, I found myself there were a couple things I learned. So me, 22, 23. So I went to school, I went to Indiana University for computer science, and then realized my senior year, I did not want to fix somebody's printer for my life.
I hear you.
I would have smashed the printer over my head. No, thank you. And so I realized having these discussions, because it started out as a summer job, where I would talk with these retired gentlemen that were 60, 65, 67. And the guys that went home, I retired from the mill or the factory, I'm going to sit on the couch and watch TV. They all died within like 2 years. All of them.
All of them.
They all die. And so that was an early lesson I learned, was stay active. I now understand why guys have sheds and tinker huts and all this stuff. You have to stay active.
Yeah.
And then I also started to see, you get to see both extremes of life, and you get to see, we more so when it comes to an estate, you know, the widow dies and she leaves it to her niece, Sherry, because she doesn't trust her kids and her kids just want her money. And then you're dealing with Sherry, doing the inspection. Hey, this has termites, this needs treated. And then she starts to, you know, vomit her life to you about, oh yeah, I got to deal with the brother and sister and they just want the money. And it really gave me an interesting perspective on life early on, that having guns pulled, seeing prostitutes, all this, doing the, you know, you probably got some stories in Baltimore, I could imagine.
I've got a few. Yeah.
And you know, and so I found it was very interesting to me to be thankful and be grateful for things.
Yes.
In full disclosure, I'm not a believer. I'm not a religious person, but I'm not an atheist. And I found myself over the years identifying more and more with believers, just because it seems like that makes a lot more sense than the other side.
Yeah, I hear you. It's a great world. The people, I mean, I know everybody thinks we're all screwed up. Maybe we need to get our head out of the news cycle a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have our problems, but people, I just love people. And, you know, circle back to this group. I love people, pest people, and I want everyone to succeed. I want all my customers to have a great experience while I'm there. I want to just get along. I hate drama. I hate conflict. You know, I don't know where I'm going with this. I just am a people person. And I think over the years, I've become more of a people person by dealing with all these different backgrounds. And I've seen the lowest lows and the highest highs from people. And I've celebrated with people and cried with people. And it's been so rewarding of a career.
I agree. And I think we could probably summarize everything right there. I think that's the one thing, you know, if you were to wrap our profession up, is to have longevity in this. It's not X's and O's and mix rates. And it really is being human, standing behind your, you know, my company logo. It's your name's on the truck. Okay. Right. When people call and they have problems, if you have a warranty, just deal with it. Okay. Yeah. Don't screw people. And I do think, we're a bit of a psychologist. We're a bit of a psychiatrist. We're a bit of just a sounding board, because I'm sure you get ear beat all the same. I do too.
Yep.
And I think we're fortunate in the industry we're in to, when you interact with 12, 15 people a day, every day for years and decades, you just get to see and truly value life. Because, you know, I've had customers. I had a Korea veteran die this winter. And he, you know, he told me some stories about, you know, he was an engineer, went to college, didn't really want to get drafted. It was a thing to do, you know, and we had a talk at his lake house out on a picnic bench. He was 92, still mowed his own yard, everything.
Wow.
And I have a lot of respect for that. And And then you do the opposite. The people that seem to only value money, everything's transactional, everything, and it's hard. I've had to try to refrain from being so cynical about things, because I think it's easy to do, especially in our, hyperbolic society right now. Everything is every extreme, everything.
Yeah.
You're this or this.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. And to wrap this up, Jerry, again, I really appreciate your time. Pest Cemetery has been an amazing thing for me. And I have never seen it, but it's been welcoming to everybody I've seen that's willing to put themselves out there and really have discussions about things. And
I agree.
And everybody from across, it's primarily United States people. I've seen some people, Costa Rica and some other places comment, I think, about some stuff, but I think that is the general sentiment. I think everybody in America really, when you just sit down and talk and you recognize, oh, you might look different or like different things from me, but like, oh, you're trying to kill these bed bugs. Like, I can help with this. And of course, like, I wouldn't hate you just because of that. Like, we're all in this together.
Yep.
It's no longer feast or famine.
Right.
Everybody can win. Everybody can sit at the table. And if you do it the right way, you will succeed. And, right way. But Jerry, we got maybe a quarter of the way through what I wanted to talk about with you. But
I'm available again.
Yeah, I would love to have you back on. I mean, I sincerely appreciate you, Pest Cemetery, the Facebook side. I've read the blog a little bit, but just you willing to put yourself out there, create, teach, and then provide the platform that now is 15,000 members strong. I mean, to me, I think it's funny that some of these other businesses could poo-poo Pest Cemetery, but I think you're a fool to turn away at knowledge, especially the free exchange of knowledge.
I agree. I agree big time. And it's been a struggle at times, and it's been a lot of late night messaging, back and forth with some drama.
Yeah.
But, overall, hearing words like that from you, or sometimes a post just will touch my heart. And I just realized that, hey, it's all been worth it. It's something I can look back and say, is it much of a legacy? I don't know, but it's a legacy because nothing goes away on the internet.
Nope. Nope. Just be happy it's that, and it's not pictures that you don't want out there.
Yeah, that's true. But
you're exactly right, Jerry. You have really, that's part of why this is kind of selfish, but that's part of why I created the YouTube. Was it's an easy way for me to communicate to customers. Mm-hmm. Also, to just put stuff out there and we'll see where it goes.
Right.
But I have young kids, and, I want them to be able to see me. Like, if something happens to me, my legacy is not, this is another thing I learned. Legacy is not how many zeros you have in your bank account, because once that's gone, your legacy no longer exists.
That's right.
So what wisdom, what knowledge, what can you leave on this earth that is much longer lasting? And so, sincerely, Jerry, we don't know each other. We've never met, but you're, to have the platform and to be able to discuss, just know you've helped me become a better technician. Many others, I'm sure, would share that same sentiment, that just having the platform, and you've offered words of encouragement. You've also been very honest. It's the whole Dave Ramsey saying, I'll give you my advice, but it's free, so you might not like it. But there's some ideas that have been shared in the group in the past here that haven't been popular, and you haven't been shy to be like, I don't know if this is a good idea.
Right. I
think those guardrails are good. These sort of social guardrails of that might work, but I either did this or this is my reaction.
Right. Usually I go with my gut, and if something just doesn't seem right, and I've made mistakes.
Right.
But the one rule I always go by, and I'll finish up with this on my end, is the reason the Dead Sea is so dead is because it only has inlets. It has no outlets. If you're not giving in life, you're not going to receive. And I didn't start with this grand idea of 15,000 people, and maybe, you know, by the end of the year, we'll hit 16 or 17. I don't know. But it's always grown. That's always been one of the foundations. And
Yeah.
it's been in my life too.
I you know, again, you probably didn't start it for legacy and to be on your tombstone, but
Oh, I want to Google stuff.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, what better way to community source ideas? And so it's been very impactful. I think people are foolish to poo-poo it or do away with it. I think, you know, if you want to talk to continuing ed, we're all required to go to continuing ed.
Right.
It's there every day for free.
Right.
It literally is.
Yep.
And you know, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I would love to have you back on because yeah, I've got, oh man, thoughts on buyouts, the housing market. Oh yeah, just we could go on and on and on.
It sounds like it, but that I'm game. You know, usually in the evening time is
wonderful.
Fine for me.
Wonderful. Well, I'll look to have you back on here again. And thanks again, Jerry.
Thank you, Chris. Have a wonderful night and God bless.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.